Hey everybody, it's Kevin from Retro Future Guy, and I am back with an unboxing of the Nintendo Switch 2, which I did end up picking up yesterday. Apologies, I'm a day late on getting this video done, but it took me a while to get things set up, and I made it a longer video than I'd originally intended, and then pared it way back. So here we are. I just got home from picking this up from Costco. And I did that because I figured that their return policy was going to be more generous than pretty much any other place around, with I think 90 days, which is plenty of time to figure out whether or not this thing is worth holding on to. So they had a bundle deal, which I think was 574 or thereabouts, which for that price you got the base unit with the Mario Kart World Pack in, and then also the 12-month of enhanced online, interactivity and chat and all the online features with the upgraded store with the GameCube titles and things like that. I actually don't care all that much about those features, but I did care about the return policy. So I ended up picking it up from there. And in fact, I have another version of this that I picked up through Best Buy on pre order, which is going back to them unopened so that they can resell it to another loving home. So the Pro controller Costco is selling separately for $75. I think that's $10 off of the normal price for it. I think it's 85 if I'm not mistaken at most other locations. So that was a bit of a bargain as well. So I got out the door for what was it, about 650 or something like that. So as I'm doing this unboxing, you can see we've got the larger size Joy-Cons, the larger size base unit, and here we've got the Mario Kart key code. I already set aside the key code for the 12 months of enhanced online access. They've got a high-speed HDMI code and the warranty information and safety information on a sheet that nobody will ever read. You've then got those little lanyard slash mouse holders. So they slip onto the left and right side Joy-Cons to allow you to use the thing turned kind of upright in what they are referring to, I think, as like mouse mode. And I haven't seen a lot that shows off the functionality. It would be nice if it was one of those things that you could actually wave in the air and use like a light gun or a Wiimote, but that's not what it is. It's pretty much just moving around the desk. And it remains to see how comfortable that's going to be. I would need to see some software that causes you to use it. And if the welcome tour thing has it in there, I'm sure as heck not going to see that, because I'm not paying $10 for a glorified tutorial. It's just ridiculous. But I've said that before, that I think that is just in terrible form for Nintendo not to have included that as a pack in. So the dock, definitely a more attractive looking dock than the last one. It's got two USB A's on the side of it, and after you crack off the back, it's got a LAN port, it's got a USB-C, and it's got an HDMI. So pretty much, I suppose, all the connectivity you would expect to see there. The rounded package is a little bit nicer. I've got to say, though, I still don't understand why these things are sandwiching the Switch 2 into it, like the first generation Switch did. I'm guessing that that's just to make it more stable for sitting up on a shelf or something like that, or if kids are using it. But I would have preferred if it was just leaning back on, kind of a stand where you were able to actually see the screen. But it was not to be. So you've also got that that connector, which I just put back in the box without even mentioning it, where you're able to connect the two Joy-Cons and turn that into one big square handheld controller. Now, with the Switch 1, I never used the Joy-Cons at all. I thought that they were ridiculously small and I didn't think they felt good. I thought they felt gimmicky and cheesy, and the entire thing was just a little bit too small for me to enjoy using it. It felt too much like using a phone to me, at least at that screen size, and then the controllers just felt too, I don't know, just too flimsy. Um, but I'll get into a little bit more of the comparison between the Switch 1 and Switch 2 momentarily, and it is a pretty big difference. Credit where it's due. The larger size, which some people might not like because it's less pocketable than the old version, I love it for the screen size. It's a better looking screen than at least the LCD one was originally, and then the Joy Cons themselves are just larger than they were. And I don't know that the buttons are much bigger, and I don't know that the sticks themselves are that much bigger, but there's just more of a grip to them. Certainly the top buttons, the left and right buttons that are on the sides of it that attach to the unit magnetically this time around, those are much larger than they were and less gimmicky than they were. So I like that. Now, cracking open the Pro controller, it's almost identical other than the color of the gray on black as opposed to an all black thing that the Switch 1 version had. The only real difference is that there is access to the chat through it. Now, I have heard a rumor that with and I haven't tried mine out yet, but the Switch 1 Pro controller actually is mostly fully functional on Switch 2, except that it apparently can't wake the device from sleep, which, if that is the case, that is just a ridiculous oversight. Is it an oversight or was it done on purpose? I don't know, but I think that that is just silly that they didn't figure out some sort of workaround to allow that to work. But of course, then people wouldn't buy the Switch 2 Pro controller. I just wanted to try it out because I had heard that the movement of the sticks was much more fluid and more comfortable. And frankly, I thought the Switch 1 Pro controller was pretty excellent. So I was anxious to try it out. But if I don't like it, it's going back. Or if there's not a big difference between the Switch 1 and 2 version, it's going back. So in comparison here to the Switch 1, you can see that there is a difference in screen quality. It may not seem like a giant step up, but I think that the Switch 1, at least the the original LCD one, which I had, is just a little bit washed out. And it really is kind of dwarfed by the Switch 2. The screen size, the top and bottom bezels are smaller on the Switch 2 than they were on the Switch 1. It looks like a much more premium modern device. Of course, it's got a price tag to match that, so it it feels much more premium on your wallet. Um, However, I do just feel like, as far as the hardware goes, they really nailed it. I have a lot of issues with some of the things that they've done in terms of software. I certainly have issues in terms of some of the stuff that they've done as far as pricing goes, but I cannot fault them on the hardware. The hardware is really, really solid. So, most of what you see above and below on the Switch 1 and Switch 2 are pretty similar, with the exception of being access to the social features more readily available on the Switch 2. You can see that there's like a bottom right button to use the chat there that isn't in the Switch 1 at all. Um, but yeah, it's just it's a better piece of hardware this time around. It's faster. It's got the bigger screen. Um, it looks and feels a lot nicer. The Joy Cons, which used to slide on and off the rails, as everybody who's ever touched a Switch knows that that's the way that it worked. Could be a little fiddly. I mean, certainly there were ways to get good at it and not have a problem with it, but I found myself struggling with it again after not having used my Switch One for a long while. But while there is still a button to disconnect them, they just magnetically connect this time around, and with a very satisfying snap. So, as silly as that sounds to say that that just feels good, it does. It feels quality this time around. Um, and you can see here the buttons, they're so much bigger on the Switch 2 with the left and right top buttons, whereas they just felt like little chiclets on the Switch 1. Now they sort of feel like real and usable left and right buttons. So that's nice. Um, I don't love the fact that um, the the cross digital directional pad are, left, right, up and down buttons as opposed to being one cross pad on it. I would have preferred that, but then again, I think for people who use these things as, one player one uses one side and player two uses the other side for two-player couch gaming or whatever, I get it. I understand the reason it is why it is. I don't particularly love the fact that it is as high up as it is because it just forces your hands so close together in using them. That I can't say that I completely understand the rationale there, um, of why they didn't lower those directional buttons closer to the bottom, or if you're looking at it sideways, the right side of it. But maybe someone else here knows. If you do know what the rationale is there, put it in the comments, because I frankly don't know. So this is the mouse mode that I was talking about. When you attach the lanyard to it, then you're able to see that the cursor is moving around the screen. There is a little bit of left and right wobble to it. It could fall over. It's not the most comfortable thing to use, but I'm trying to reserve judgment until I've actually played games for an extended amount of time that utilize that, and certainly Mario Kart World was not one of them. Here I'm fumbling over trying to figure out how to get off the little, I don't know, mouse bases slash lanyard thing. I thought maybe there's something that looks like a little recessed button up at the top of it that I thought might be used to disengage it, but I think it's actually just you pull it with a little bit of force and it comes right off. So I try it a couple more times to just make sure that that's the case, but yeah. So obviously there's one for the left and one for the right, color coded for your convenience. So it's interesting with the Switch 1, I had those things always on the unit and I never took them off. And I had the unit docked 90 plus percent of it, probably 99% of the time. Um, Again, screen was just a little too small. Joy-Cons weren't particularly comfortable. I just found the whole thing a little janky, but with really good software. So I used it docked all the time. Um, and I think with the Switch 2, if I decide to keep it, then there is the probability that I would be using it in handheld a lot more than simply using it docked. So on the Switch One, you probably are very familiar with the layout here, but you got the power button, the volume rocker, the headphone jack, the vent, um, and the game card slot, and then you've obviously got the plus and minus buttons, the ABXY buttons, the two joysticks, the directional pad, which serves as the second set of buttons if you're using the controllers in kind of like single mode. And then you've got your home button and your capture button on the front of it. Um, Depending on whether you play games in Tate mode or which is kind of the portrait mode, you may you may use the buttons that way. Again, I don't totally understand the rationale of why they're squeezed so close together. I didn't understand it on the Switch 1. I doubly don't understand it on the Switch 2 because there's so much more vertical real estate to be working with. I can only imagine that it's um, so that you're not holding the analog pads, with one thumb really high up on the device and one really low on the device. I imagine that people might complain about that. So you've got to kind of stagger them but keep them close together. But I'm not sure. Again, if you understand the rationale, let me know. So you can see that it's very, very similar on the top or on the Switch 2, both the top and the bottom, with the difference being that there's two USB-C controllers. That to me is or ports, I should say, two USB-C ports, and instead of that dinky little stick that was on the back of the Switch 1 that served as a kickstand on at least the original version, the LCD version. This one has one that stretches across the entire back of the device and really seems pretty sturdy at whatever angle you put it at. You can put it almost completely flat. You can stand it almost totally straight up, I think, any more than I did it right there, and it's liable to just flop over, but so much better than it was on at least the original Switch. I never saw the point in upgrading to the OLED model, which I think had a wider kickstand to it as well, but I think they did a really good job this time around anyway. It just feels better in the hand. It's about 100 grams, I think, heavier than the Switch 1, so it's larger and less pocketable, and it's heavier, which is both a good and a bad thing. Like it feels more stable and more secure, but do you trust a little kid with it? I mean, it's more expensive this time around, so maybe not. I probably wouldn't, but hey, it was part of the reason I didn't have kids, so I didn't need to share my toys. So here I'm just connecting the USB-C cable to the charging brick. I forgot to check. I'm sure that that's a 60-watt charger, but I'm not 100% sure on that. Don't quote me on that. I need to look that up, and I'll put it in the comments or the description once I clarify that for myself. I decided to take the Switch 2 out of the dock before futzing around with the rest of it, for fear that I might um, dump the unit out of there, and that would have been pretty embarrassing to do on camera. It frankly would have been pretty embarrassing to do with a brand new device either way, but at least it would be going onto a soft, oversized mouse pad, that purple thing that I use on my desk. So we've got the USB-A to USB-C that's going for charging and connecting up the Switch 2 Pro controller, and slotting in the Switch 2 to its dock, where all the rest of the magic then happens. It took me for freaking ever to download the 25 games that I had. And then, as you can see on the screen right here, and I'll get into this more later during the review segment of this thing in the near future after I've used it some more, the process of these virtual game cards, and having to choose which console to use and which to deactivate them on, I just think is stupid. Unlike something like Steam, where you can use the software, your games, on any device that you're plugged into, for some asinine reason, you have to choose between the Switch 1 and Switch 2, and you can only have one activated at any given time. And that is just lame. That is weak sauce right there. And yeah, right here it's telling me that, oh, you need to do an update on the Switch 1. Well, guess what? I had just done an update, and it was completely up to date and still wouldn't allow me to do it. So I'll save that for the review. But suffice to say, I was not a fan of how long it took me to get this stuff done, and I wasn't a fan of the, digital rights management or whatever you want to call it, where I own two consoles and I can only use it on one. It's not at an account level, it's at a console level that you own these things, and that's some weak sauce right there. Um, all right. Yeah, it took me quite a while to figure this one out, but I'll save that more for the next one. Anyway, the jury is still out. I have played the heck out of Mario Kart, which I will get into with some actual footage in the next one. In fact, in the space of about 3 hours, I played it to the end credits, with the secret cup and everything having been unlocked, playing it once through, on 150cc mode, each of the cups. And it's a pretty awesome game, but is it enough to get over the other issues that I have with the hardware and software? I guess you'll have to stick around and find out. All right, I'll see you on the next one.